You know that feeling when you walk into a room, see a problem that's been bothering everyone for hours, and you just fix it? You don't ask for permission. You don't look around for a manual. You definitely don't wait for a supervisor to give you the green light. You just grab the metaphorical screwdriver, tighten the screw, and walk away before anyone even realizes the crisis is over. To the outside world, you look detached, maybe even a little cold or cynical. People might say you're hard to reach or that you have a wall up, but what they see as a lack of emotion is actually a highly tuned operating system. It's not that you don't care, it's that you learned a very long time ago that waiting for help is a luxury you couldn't afford. You aren't being difficult, you're being Gen X. And there is a very specific, very logical reason why your brain works this way. If you recognize yourself in that description, I want you to take a breath and realize something important. You are not broken. You aren't jaded or antisocial just for the sake of it. The way you navigate the world, that quiet, fierce independence and that skeptical squint you give to anyone in a suit, is a masterpiece of psychological adaptation. Your brain didn't just decide to be this way, it was forged in a very specific fire. You grew up in a window of history that demanded you become your own parent, your own protector, and your own source of truth. This isn't a personality flaw, it's a survival mechanism that worked so well it became your identity. And today, we're going to peel back the layers of that armor, not to fix it, but to finally understand why it's there. Think back to the silence of a house at 3 in the afternoon. For many of you, that was the soundtrack of your childhood. You were the first generation of latchkey kids on a massive scale. You remember the weight of a physical key around your neck or hidden under a plastic rock. You remember making yourself a peanut butter sandwich in a kitchen where the only sound was the hum of the refrigerator. Psychologically, this created a profound shift in how you view the world. While other generations were being observed and guided, you were experimenting with the raw consequences of reality. If you forgot your jacket, you were cold. If you didn't start your homework, it didn't get done. This created a high-contingency environment. Your brain learned early on that the gap between a problem and a solution was exactly the length of your own arms. You didn't develop self-reliance because you wanted to. You developed it because in those quiet afternoons, you were the only authority figure in the room. This leads to a specific kind of relationship with authority that often gets labeled as cynicism. But let's call it what it really is: a high standard for competence. You grew up watching the institutions your parents trusted start to crumble in real time. You saw the headlines about Watergate, the energy crisis, and corporate layoffs that stripped away the job for life promise. You watched adults struggle with a skyrocketing divorce rate, often feeling like a passenger in a car where the driver was distracted. When you see a boss today who doesn't know what they're talking about, or a politician making empty promises, your brain doesn't just get annoyed, it goes on high alert. To you, incompetent authority isn't just a nuisance, it's a threat to the stability you've worked so hard to build for yourself. You don't hate leadership, you hate the performance of leadership without the substance to back it up. And then there's the invisibility. You've probably noticed that in the loud, constant war between boomers and millennials, your generation is often left out of the conversation. And here's the secret: most of you actually prefer it that way. There is a quiet pride in being the person who gets things done in the background. In a world that is now obsessed with personal branding and visibility, the Gen X mind finds safety in the shadows. This stems from a childhood where being seen meant being in trouble or being a burden. If you were quiet and handled your business, you were safe. You learned that the less people knew about what you were doing, the more freedom you had to do it your way. Your independence isn't a lonely island, it's a fortress of autonomy. You don't need the applause, you just need the space to solve the puzzle. But here's the part nobody tells you. The part that explains the underlying tension you might feel even when everything is going well. Because you spent so much time being the adult when you were still a child, your nervous system is permanently tuned to a frequency of hypervigilance. You aren't just good at your job, you are constantly scanning for the rug pull. You expect the layoff, you expect the market to dip, you expect the plan to fail. This isn't pessimism, it's a calculated readiness. You've lived through enough once-in-a-lifetime economic disasters to know that stability is an illusion. Your cynicism is actually a form of deep care. You care so much about protecting your peace and your family that you refuse to be blindsided by a world that has blindsided you so many times before. This behavior evolves as you get older, but it never really leaves. You might find yourself in your 40s or 50s, still struggling to ask for help even when you're drowning. You might feel a strange sense of guilt when you aren't being productive, as if the silence of that empty house from 1982 is still judging your output. The identity of the fixer is a heavy one to carry. You've become the bridge generation, the ones holding the analog past in one hand and the digital future in the other. You're the ones taking care of aging parents and rising children simultaneously, often without uttering a single complaint. You are the emotional shock absorbers of society. You take the hits so they don't reach the people you love. There's a specific kind of emotional regulation that happens when you lean into this self-reliance. When the world gets chaotic, you don't look for a group to join, you look for a task to complete. This is your anchor. For a Gen X brain, control is the ultimate sedative. If you can fix the sink, organize the spreadsheet, or map out the contingency plan, your heart rate slows down. The physical act of doing is how you process feeling. You might not be the person who talks for hours about their trauma in a circle, but you are the person who shows up with a shovel when a friend's basement floods. Your loyalty isn't expressed in words, it's expressed in presence and action. You are the most reliable person in the room because you know exactly how much it hurts when someone isn't reliable for you. Think of your self-reliance not as a wall that keeps people out, but as a familiar room where you finally feel safe. It's your autopilot. It's the home you built for yourself when the one you were given felt a little too quiet or a little too unpredictable. You aren't cold. You are a finely tuned instrument of survival. You are the generation that learned to find humor in the dark, to find truth in the grit, and to find value in the things that actually work rather than the things that just look good. At the end of the day, your story isn't one of being forgotten. It's a story of being unbreakable. You are the proof that you can grow up in the gaps of the system and still build a life of profound meaning. You don't need to change. You don't need to be louder. You don't need to soften your edges to make other people more comfortable. Those edges are what allowed you to cut through the noise and survive. There's no shame in the key around your neck. There's no flaw in your skepticism. You are simply a person who knows the value of a job well done and the peace of a quiet afternoon. You have always been enough, even when you were the only one there to see it. If this perspective on the Gen X mind resonated with you, it would mean a lot to us if you could like this video and share it with someone who might need to hear that they aren't difficult, they're just resilient. We're building a community here focused on understanding the deep, often hidden reasons why we are the way we are. Please consider subscribing to join us on this journey of self-discovery. Together, we can find the logic in the chaos and the peace in being understood. See you in the next one.